Okay, once again, we are going to be using the Nebula filter. We're having a look, obviously, at Messier 13. I'm going to recap some of the studies of the previous evening. I think the sky is a little darker now, maybe a little better to the far south. So anything above 30, minus 30 degrees to minus plus 40, maybe 45 degrees will be in my purview for the evening, but I'm going to try to run through them just so we can have a comparo with previous evening's views. Once again, this is Messier 13. It is 10:28 on the 18th of July 2025, a Friday night at the observatory. Once again, I am running in airplane mode. I'm hoping once again I can go for a whole 25 minutes without actually having to stop and store the Microsoft sniffing tool captures of this evening. We're starting with NGC 6058 Planetary Nebula Hercules, magnitude 13, 25 by 20 arc seconds, magnitude 13.9 central star. It's 11,500 light years distant, right ascension 16 hours, 4 minutes, 26 seconds, with a declination of plus 40 degrees, 40 minutes, 58 seconds. We are getting a little bit of aperture block, and that may explain why the image is not quite up to snuff. The block is occurring with the roof try because we're pointing more or less up towards the zenith. All right, I've decided I am not going to go like last night to see nothing in Scorpius minus 36 degrees. Otherwise, we'd be going, if it were further north, the NGC 6072 Planetary Nebula, magnitude 14, 50 by 30 arc seconds, with a 17.5 magnitude central star that you cannot possibly make out in this scope, a 6-inch scope, even with the ZWO imager, because we are installing a nebular filter. NGC 6072 is 3,300 light years distant, right ascension 16 hours, 12 minutes, 58 seconds, and declination minus 36 degrees, 13 minutes, 47 seconds. So I am keeping 6058 on the screen as I cite the data. Nor am I going to go down to NGC 6153, a planetary nebula in Scorpius, brighter, magnitude 11.5, 25 arc seconds in diameter, with a central star of magnitude 15.6, 4,800 light years distant. It is at right ascension 16 hours, 31 minutes, and 30 seconds, which is pretty close to culminating at this moment, but its declination is minus 40 degrees, 15 minutes, 13 seconds. Way too low behind the hills. Meanwhile, we can go and have a look at NGC 6210 Planetary Nebula in Hercules, magnitude 9.7, quite bright, 20 by 13 arc seconds, so a bit elongate, with a central star of magnitude 12.5, blending in completely with the aspired nebulosity the star is radiating out into space. 7,400 light years distant. It's at right ascension 16 hours, 44 minutes, 29 seconds, with a declination of 23 degrees, 47 minutes, 59 seconds. There's a bit of a bluish white cast to it. We might call that a blue-white snowball, but I do not believe that is its actual common name. Continuing to observe 6210, I had next scheduled to go to NGC 6302, Planetary Nebula Scorpius, magnitude 12.8, larger, 72 by 30 arc seconds, quite elongate with a central star of magnitude 16.6, 2,400 light years away. Its right ascension is 17 hours, 13 minutes, 44 seconds, but unfortunately its declination of minus 37 degrees, 6 minutes, and 11 seconds puts it out of reach. Okay, to be clear, we are operating at 10 seconds exposure time. We are using the Nebula filter. Currently, we are now observing NGC 6309, and all of these planetary nebula, if I don't specify the magnification, are basically going to be at 100% e-zoom, and that represents about 300x, which is an excellent 50% of the aperture of the scope. So in terms of magnification, actually 1.5 millimeters exit pupil. This is a rather fascinating planetary nebula, and I don't think I got as good a view the previous evening. In fact, it was a bit mystifying. This is NGC 6309, planetary nebula in Ophiuchus, kind of bluish cast to its ionized particles. It's magnitude 11.6, 20 by 10 arc seconds. You can see that it is a little different because one part of it is smaller than the other. But I do believe this is actually a pair of stars, and I will have to look it up on the manana if I remember to do so. It's magnitude 16.3 central star, so it's not indicating central stars on the handset here. 8,900 light years distant with a right ascension of 17 hours, 14 minutes, 44 seconds, and a declination of minus 12 degrees, 54 minutes, 37 seconds. We're probably about 5 degrees pre-culminatory. I do feel we should push the magnification up. 100% was basically like 300. Let's go to 200, which is about 450x. It may entirely be possible because of the coloration of this neighboring blot, and it may be an accompanying planetary nebula. This may be a pair, but it looks more like there's two separate stars, both of which are in their dotage. Their central furnaces no longer do nucleosynthesis, but their heat is tremendous. Gravitational forces are collapsing, and much of the astronomical metals that have been converted from hydrogen or helium are now being emanated and cooked off into space, and we are seeing it now as though it were 8,900 years ago. Nice view. As we continue to observe the previous planetary nebula, which I believe is 6309, the next on my list, which I was not able to image last night, and is also too far south, was NGC 6334, Nebula Scorpius, largish, 2 by almost 2 arc minutes in size, 120 by 110 arc minutes, and emissive nebula 5,700 light years distant. Its right ascension was 17 hours, 20 minutes, 49 seconds, and its declination minus 36 degrees, 6 minutes and 12 seconds. And it is that minus 36 degrees that places it off limit this evening. Backing out to a 1+ degree field at some 75x with NGC 6309, I would make a note that NGC 6337 planetary in Scorpius, magnitude 12.3, 38 by 28 arc seconds, with a magnitude 14.8 central star, 4,400 light years distance, is at a declination of minus 38 degrees, 29 minutes, with a right ascension of 17 hours, 22 minutes, and 15 seconds. So we've skipped, I believe, the last 3 planetary or nebulae that we were on my list for this evening. And yes, indeed, we've also skipped NGC 6357, a nebula in Scorpius, 50 by 40 arc minutes, emissive type, 3,900 light years distant, because once again, it did not meet my parameter of minus 30 degrees, because it's at minus 34 degrees, 12 minutes, 6 seconds, with a right ascension of 17 hours, 24 minutes, and 43 seconds. Well, this particular nebula in open cluster should be familiar. I imaged it the previous evening, but under a different designation. This is Messier 20, also known as NGC 6514, described as a nebula and open cluster in Sagittarius. The alignment model is a bit off, so what I'm going to do is magnify it and center it better on the screen for a better presentation. Messier 20 is magnitude 6.3, 28 arc minutes in diameter, which basically means its average surface brightness. Probably have to calculate it, but it's around 14. It's got 67 stars in it. We're not seeing very many of them because we're not really seeing clusters with the nebula filter or nebula booster in place. It suppresses starlight probably by about 3 magnitudes. The brightest star in it looks like it's a bit of a double because the other stars are singular, even though I'm now currently operating at 30 seconds exposure time, is magnitude 6. This is an emissive nebula, a mere 2,700 light years distance, so there's going to be an open cluster somewhere near us in the future that really begins to condense itself well. We're at light ascension 18 hours, 2 minutes, and 42 seconds, with a declination of minus 22 degrees, 58 minutes, and 18 seconds. I probably missed this open cluster last night because I was imaging at 5 to 10 seconds, but I can't be sure of that. Let me go ahead and run it back down to 10 seconds and we'll have another view. Nope, if I had been operating at 10 seconds last night, we would have seen NGC 6514. I must have curtailed my studies when I got to 6500 and jumped over to the Messier catalog to gather a few of those up. Tonight I'm going to stay pretty much with NGC designated nebulae and planetary nebulae. What we have here is our 10-second view of something I did not include last night because I started at Messier 16. This is Messier 8, and we're getting quite a good view at 10 seconds exposure time of NGC 6523, a nebula and open cluster. More obvious open cluster here, and probably are in formation at the same distance, and that's what it indicates here. M8 is magnitude 5, 45 by 30 arc minutes. We can see it extending all the way out to the limits here, so that's pretty much 45 arc minutes. Emissive type nebula, 4,300 light years distant, with a right ascension of 18 hours, 3 minutes, 41 seconds, and a declination of minus 24 degrees, 22 minutes, and 48 seconds. Actually quite close to our last NGC Messier study. I'm going to go ahead and boost to 30 seconds exposure time so we can have an even better view of what I think is the Lagoon Nebula. Okay, here is our 35 arc minute field by about 25, 35 by 25 degree field, a 30-second exposure of Messier 8. We're pretty much getting the entire extent of the nebula, tremendous amount of detail. 30-second exposure is pretty much, there's only a slight amount of comatose to the stars. Clusters above to the east. Most of the nebulosity where the lagoon, I believe, is featured is in this area here. I will correct that if I have misnamed it on the manana. Once again, NGC 6523, nebula and open cluster in Sagittarius, magnitude 8. M8, magnitude 5, 45 by 30 arc minutes, elliptical, 4,300 light years distant. Not a bad view for being minus 24 degrees in declination. Here is a view of the Lagoon Nebula, but featuring the open cluster. It's designated as NGC 6530 Nebula and open cluster in Sagittarius, magnitude 4.6, 15 arc minutes in size, with its brightest stars are 6.9. It's a class 2-2, 4,300 light years distant, which I believe is the same as our previous study, which was the Lagoon Messier 8. Right ascension 18 hours, 4 minutes, 31 seconds, with a declination of minus 24 degrees, 21 minutes, and 30 seconds. So basically east of the core of the Lagoon. Here we we have a planetary nebula NGC 6537 in Sagittarius, magnitude 12, a mere 5 arcseconds in diameter with a central star of magnitude 19.5. 2,900 light years distant with a right ascension of 18 hours, 5 minutes, 13 seconds and a declination of minus 19 degrees, 50 minutes and 34 seconds. We're currently observing it at 100% zoom, or roughly 300x. Let's see if we can double that and get any other sense of this planetary nebula, NGC 6537. And this is probably a better view than I got the previous evening, if I did in fact image it whatsoever, because I do remember a reddish, very tiny planetary nebula. This one's quite small, but I may not have imaged it previously, so it's a nice catch. I think I went after this one the previous evening as well. This is NGC 6559, or should I say it is not. It's a nebula in Sagittarius, 5 by 4 arc minutes in size, not arc seconds, 5 by 4 arc minutes. Emissive type nebula, 5,000 light years distant with a right ascension of 18 hours, 9 minutes, 56 seconds, and a declination of minus 24 degrees, 6 minutes, and 23 seconds. Nothing to see here. Let's move along. Okay, what we're seeing here is a real beauty. I believe I've imaged this with the Rev 2 system. This is NGC 6563, a planetary nebula in Sagittarius, magnitude 13, 54 by 41 arcseconds with an 18th magnitude central star. Going to 100% zoom. Here is our image, centered up on the screen. Perhaps not as aesthetically pleasing as dropping because of its size, dropping back to 150x. Magnitude 13, 54 by 41 arcseconds with an 18th magnitude central star, 5,400 light years distant, at right ascension 18 hours, 12 minutes, and 2 seconds. If you don't like the view, it's probably because I broke the rule on this one. It's at minus 33 degrees, 52 minutes, and 7 seconds. And I haven't been playing with histogram at all on any of these. They've been turning up rather well with just the settings that I've currently had set up for maybe the last 10 studies or so. There we go, NGC 6563. It's possible that one of the reasons why we're getting such a good view of these lower southern declination planetary nebula is because I just noticed I've left the exposure time on 30 seconds. So go ahead and watch this one as I go ahead and get the data together. There may be some clouds coming through, but it doesn't look quite as nice as it did originally. There's a better background sky, but we've lost it. Okay, we're going to leave it at this. Let me push the right one over, the right slider. There we go. This is NGC 6565, a planetary nebula in Sagittarius, magnitude 13, 10 by 8 arcseconds. I am operating at fairly high E-zoomage. Magnitude 19.5 central star, magnitude 13 itself. 15,200 light years distant. Kind of explains this one, doesn't it? So right ascension 18 hours, 11 minutes, 52 seconds with a declination of minus 28 degrees, 10 minutes, and 40 seconds. There may have been some sky drift up there. We're not quite seeing it. I'm going to back out. 30-second exposure. I think we may have lost it. Peculiar. Our next planetary for consideration is NGC 6567 in Sagittarius. Magnitude 11.5, 11 by 7 arcseconds in size with a magnitude 15 central star. push this baby up a little bit and see if we can make it out. We're getting some duplication at 30 seconds exposure time. I think I'm going to run it down to 10. Give me a moment. Well, I couldn't tell you where NGC 6567 is, that planetary in Sagittarius, but it's quite bright, so it's possibly one of these brightest stars here. It's at magnitude 11.5, 11 by 7 arc seconds with a 15th magnitude central star, 11,800 light years distant, a little less than halfway to the galactic core. Has a right ascension of 18 hours, 13 minutes, 45 seconds, and a declination of minus 19 degrees, 4 minutes and 34 seconds. So folks, cross your fingers now. We are now some almost 21 minutes into this video. Let's see if it gets truncated or curtailed when I pause it and close it. Now we got the full 20 minutes of the first series of planetaries and other nebulae captured and stored, from what I can tell. So my hypothesis regarding airplane mode interfering with the snipping tool makes sense. Now, a lot of people might be using the snipping tool in order to be able to do live video casts, but I'm not sure how that would affect it. But the problem isn't capturing it, it's in storing it. So let me go on from here. We're now going to have a look at NGC 6572. Do a little bit of zoomage here to 100%. I do believe it's this one right here, and the better way to tell is to gather some data, 6572. So here we go, punching it in, because you certainly don't believe I've memorized any of this. At best, I'm able to handle abstractions and understand how things relate together, but in terms of memorizing detailed data, that's a little bit beyond my ability. Here we are with NGC 6572, Planetary Nebula in Ophiuchus, magnitude 8, 15 by 12 arc seconds. So that magnitude 8 tells you pretty much this is our baby. And I'm going to push it up, way up, to 300% zoom. And you can see a bit of an extension there. This one has got a 12th magnitude central star, 5,700 light years distant, right ascension 18 hours, 12 minutes, 6 seconds, with a declination of 6 degrees, 51 minutes, and 12 seconds. We're going to go ahead and look at a nebula now because I failed to pause this. And I'm going to go to 30 seconds exposure time, and we'll watch it. We're about 20 seconds into it now while I gather up some data on NGC 6589. Okay, we're seeing the star field here a little bit. Not that stars really pop when you're using a nebula filter. We're at NGC 6589, Nebula in Sagittarius, supposed to be about 15 arc minutes in diameter. So it should, everything's been kind of low this evening, so it should be right in this region here. It's emissive type, 5,500 light years distant, right ascension, 18 hours, 16 minutes, 53 seconds, with a declination of minus 19 degrees, 46 minutes, 39 seconds. I don't think I really should play with the histogram, but it hasn't really done much for it anyway. So this is our not view of NGC 6589. Okay, we also have a not view of a nebula in open cluster NGC 6590. I'll give you the data as we continue to compile the second pass. Hopefully that will reveal something, but I have my doubts. NGC 6590 is a nebula in open cluster in Sagittarius. It's also NGC 6595, magnitude 7, 11 arc when it's in diameter. There's roughly 30 stars, which would be easily revealed if we weren't using a nebula filter. It is a reflective nebula, which also explains why we may not be seeing it, plus the band is kind of wide on the histogram. Light ascension is 18 hours, 17 minutes, 4 seconds, with a declination of minus 19 degrees, 51 minutes, 57 seconds. I will go to NGC 6600 before bailing and looking at three of our favorites before I knock off for this evening. Okay, we're getting some doubling of stars at 30 seconds exposure time. I must have been moving around. Wanted to show you NGC 6596. We are getting a sense of the open cluster, but none of the nebulosity. 10 minutes in size, 30 stars. It's a class 3-2, which means there's quite a variation in the brightness of the stars, and it's moderately compact at 3,600 light years distant. We have a right ascension of 18 hours, 17 minutes, 33 seconds, and a declination of minus 16 degrees at 39 minutes. Still operating at 30 seconds exposure time. As is my usual wont, I like to terminate a session at a nice round number. This is NGC 6600, a galaxy in Hercules. It's also NGC 6599, duplicate discovery and entry in the new general catalog. Magnitude 12.6 should be easily identifiable and visible on the screen, especially at 30-second exposure times. We're not seeing it at all, so these filters are extremely narrow bandpass. It's got a right ascension of 18 hours, 15 minutes, 42 seconds, with a declination of plus 24 degrees, 54 minutes, and 44 seconds. Now I'm going to flip the equatorial mount, and we'll have a look at a couple of faves before saying partway out. Hey, I thought I'd step through a few exposure times with the Ring Nebula. Barely perceptible at 0.1 second, which is about a 4-inch scope on this particular evening. Step it up. Okay, this 5-second exposure time view is more like it. Here's our 13.1 magnitude star. We're not quite seeing the central star, but we are getting a nice sense of nebulosity towards its core. Here we're getting a halfway decent view at 5 seconds exposure using the 150 ED on a not particularly entrancing night of visibility of the Dumbbell Nebula, Messier 27. And I'm going to go ahead and push it to 30 seconds just so we can get a more astonishing view. But look, we're actually getting the entire oval at 5 seconds, so hey, maybe we will get a decent view this evening. I will capture many of these studies without the nebula filter as well, and you'll see the star population just explode, especially here in the Milky Way region. Here's our 10-second exposure time. The central star of magnitude 14.1 is visible. Remember, stars are at least suppressed by about 2 to 3 magnitudes when you're using this particular nebula filter. But the stars that do populate the screen are quite stellar in appearance. Nice, tiny, tight disks. Okay, at 30 seconds exposure time, we're really popping now. We're seeing far more nebulosity extended out along the equator of the star. And the poles are rich with all kinds of texture and colors in terms of the kinds of ionized particles that are being emanated. A good look. We're going to have another look at the Crescent Nebula, but I don't think we'll be going out on it tonight. I think we'll go out on the pillars of creation. Well, I must be clear, tonight is a better night of viewing than I've had thus far using the nebula filter. This is a pretty astonishing view of the Crescent Nebula. You're really getting a sense of the frontier going off here in this direction to the north and the west. This reflective nebula here, and one that was not visible before, is located here. Stars are stellar disks. They must have been very still during this formation of the image. And I'm going to bump the magnification up because this is quite a great view. The best I've had thus far. Wow. So I'm going to allow this to continue to develop for a while as I plug in our final study, which will be the Eagle Nebula, Messier 16. Allow you to continue to see that as I do so. So here we are about to head out. I salute you, Crescent Nebula, NGC 6888. Okay, we're about halfway through the 30-second exposure time to see the Eagle Nebula, Messier 16. Now, I have to say, even though I'm looking at the screen and my dark adaptation is screwed up a little bit, when I look away for a minute or two, I can see the Milky Way's nebulous milky essence down in to Sagittarius. And this is the view we get. So I would say we are having a pretty decent 5.0 magnitude, unaided limiting magnitude stars on this particular occasion, which explains why we got such a great view of the Crescent Nebula. And now the Eagle Nebula. But notice it is flipped. It's flipped because it is now 11:47. The Eagle Nebula Messier 16 has now progressed to culmination, and this is the view we get. Very nice, somewhat pixelated. Aesthetically, it probably looks best just leaving it at some 75x magnification, 75 to 90. And there is our view of Messier 16, and with that, I will say